Good morning. It's May 21st, 2024, and I'd like to call to order the morning session for the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and please note all three commissioners are in session. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. So approval of the business agenda.
Do you have anything to add, Commissioner?
I do not, other than I'll make a note now, just so you're all well aware, that when we get to the minutes, I will be abstaining since I was on vacation for both those weeks.
Okay, I would like to add a discussion on WASAC Legislative Steering Committee meeting.
Okay.
So,
Where,
have anything?
no, where would you like to put that? Where are you gonna- Miscellaneous.
Yes, we can do this. Okay. Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the business agenda with two add-ons. One under new business, the resolution to establish Klickitat County burn ban for Zone 2. And also the board update on the Klickitat or the Washington State Association of Counties Legislative Steering Committee under miscellaneous.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just note that there will be no Veterans Advisory update.
Thank you. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 22nd and April 30th, 2024.
And I will step down in second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting minutes pass.
You might want to note for the record, did Commissioner Christopher's abstaining?
Okay, thank you.
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And so we're to that time of our agenda for public comment. We'll recognize you in the room. If you're recognized, please come forward to the table and state your name and where you're from the record. Just a second. And you're in a hurry this morning. And we'll also ask the same of Zoom. When you're called on, please let us know who you are and where you're from. Thank you. Mr. Morris. Good morning.
I did 2 bowls anyway. William J. Morris, Dallasport Water District, Chairman 2024, Dallasport, Washington. Good morning, commissioners and staff. Today I request that you move the Dallasport Water District water rights following Stephen L. Ossett Attorney at Law letter and the 2012 contract, alternative option 5.5.2.3. Please take immediate action on this request so we can have our attorney process your motion per the 2012 contract. Per the contract, the city of the Dalles, Oregon and Klickitat County split the attorney's fees. Thank you. On a personal note, I wish to thank Klickitat County, the Klickitat County Road Cleanup Crew, Dallasport Murdoch Community Council, and all the community volunteers and residents that participated in the Dallasport Murdoch Community Cleanup last weekend. And a big thank you to everyone who provided food and drinks for all the volunteers. It was a resounding success and all 3 dumpsters were filled by Saturday afternoon. Also a big shout out to Ann Sleed for leading the effort and organizing this very successful event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, WJ. So moving to Zoom, is there anyone online this morning? Please raise your hand. I don't see any to you. No. So we'll go back in the room. Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to give comment this morning? Oh, thank you.
Dale Miles, Dallasport. Dale Miles, Dallasport, Washington. And this is concerning our wastewater treatment. I am understanding that there's supposed to be an emergency increase of 5% on our rates. And I'm wondering, why is that happening? And I'd also like to know, first, over a year now, we've been looking into this treatment plant and wondering why the facility isn't operating as it should. So why are we getting this increase? And for a long time, we were looking for, there's supposedly a $300,000 reserve fund. And it's come to my attention recently, that that fund is no longer there. And we couldn't find out where it was. And maybe that's because it wasn't there. And I'm just wondering, why is that? And where did it go? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So back online, is there anybody ready to comment yet this morning? Just raise your hand and let us know. 7211.
Greg Wagner with C. Does the county own the right-of-way along Knight Road? In the franchise agreement that Cypress Creek is wanting for this power line up Knight Road, it says under definition of terms, right-of-way, all property falling within the area described on the attached Appendix 1 in which the county has any form of ownership or title and which is held for public road right-of-way. That's the definition in the franchise agreement. Does the county have a perpetual easement agreement with all the landowners along Knight Road where the franchise agreement is proposed? I'd like to know what state law gives the county the ownership to a citizen's easement, if there is a law. Mr. Hunter said there was a law. If the county doesn't own the right-of-way along Knight Road, how can it grant a franchise agreement for Cypress Creek's power line? If you commissioners can answer my questions, that would be great, or the county engineer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Back in the room. Anyone wishing to give testimony this morning or have comments? No? Come on up front. Thank you.
My name's Leo Walton. I live in Dellsport, Washington, on 102 Vineyard Road. And I would like to, well, I kind of represent the Dellsport Community Deliberative Assembly, which wants to publicly thank you, the following office personnel, for diligently completing our Freedom of Information requests in a timely manner over the course of years 2022, 23, and 24. The city of Bingen administrative employees, including wastewater treatment operators, the Klickitat County administrative secretarial employees, the public works director, including mapping specialist, the Klickitat Public Utility District #1 administrative employees. And now, in August of 2022, BoCC held a workshop at the Dellsport Community Center regarding the Dellsport wastewater treatment facility and collection system. Dellsport or the facilities, because Klickitat County was nearing the final payoff of both bonds used to finance and build the facilities. The commissioners at the time, Dave Sauter, Jake Anderson, and Dan Christopher, each stated that the county was in a financial quandary. And the only option of the county had to minimize the issue was to turn over the ownership of the facilities to Klickitat PUD, as written into the original contract in 2008. With the KPUD contract C11008, where it's stated in Article 2, Recitals 2.11, once the debt is retired, it is the intent of the county to transfer ownership of the facilities to KPUD. Certain citizens and ratepayers of the Dallasport Sewer Service Area took exception to this intent and formed a temporary committee and became known as the DCDA. With a total of 17 satisfied FOIAs, the committee accumulated a list of 17 reference documents consisting of approximately 12,000 pages. The committee produced a 5-part PowerPoint presentation, and we shared this with our community, and a 46-page written report on this presentation. And finally, the Dallasport Community Deliberative Assembly would like to submit a copy of this report to the County Commissioner, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
May I do so?
Perfect timing. Thank you.
Do I? hand it?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So back online. Anyone wish to comment this morning? Not seeing anyone. Be sure to raise your hand. Okay, back in the room. Anybody else have further testimony or comments? If you see anybody online, let me know. Okay. Oh, so we'll let Sherry go and then we'll get back to you, Tracy. Thank you. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning. This is Sherry in Houston. And I wanted to follow up with what Greg is saying about the franchise agreement. There's so many times over the last 3 to 4 years, we've informed the BoCC of RCWs that are not being followed. And it's my impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this subdivision, political subdivision of Washington State is to adhere to the RCWs of Washington State. And you took an oath to uphold the Constitution, which would mean that you would adhere to those RCWs. So I would like you to answer Greg's question. Please do not avoid that. Does the county own that land for that franchise agreement request? Was the franchise agreement done properly? And if not notified properly, then it must be rescheduled. But in the meantime, I would like to remind you that as the Board of County Commissioners, on the front page, it says that you as a body can deny that agreement. You don't have to approve it. And for you to say anything else to the public is misinformation. To claim that you're doing it to protect the county is misinformation. Because if there is no franchise agreement, there will be no power lines. That means there is nothing to protect the county from. That is common sense. Stop misleading the public. This franchise agreement is in a location that an ordinance has been put into place banning large-scale solar over an acre. So my suggestion to this board that you deny that agreement immediately based on several things and breaking of RCW laws on the board's part. That's the end of that story. It's a no. No is no. The board can say no to that franchise agreement. Anything other than a no will show the people that you are supporting these corporations, these foreign corporations. So please answer the question. Does the county have a warranty deed and own that right of way in order to allow those power lines, transmission lines? So yes or no, do you own that property? Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Tracy? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to get my papers in order. So my name is Tracy McCune. I'm from Lyle, Washington, and I'm here in person today because today I looked at the interactive map and Klickitat Avenue is actually in Murdoch. So all of you in the room and all of you online, this address problem may be fixed. Now, my question is how was it fixed and who fixed it? I know it was Jeff Hunter. Elise stayed on the phone with me for a painful hour at least, going through things. I had found Tuesday, August 10th of 2021, there was, and then again, June 18th of 2021, there was a contract or agreement between GeoCom, GIS Maintenance Services Contract, number 06.21 KCWA, and it's a GIS Maintenance Bureau contract. And well, anyway, I spoke with Andrew at GeoCom and found out that they had the address problem right. So they had lat longs for 421 Klickitat Street in Lyle, as well as 421 Klickitat Avenue in Murdoch, and they had no other Klickitats, 421 Klickitats anywhere in the county. So that is when I called Elise and I said, okay, well, this problem has to be a county problem. They have it right here. Why isn't it right in the interactive map? And so I haven't heard from Jeff Hunter or anybody else of how the problem was located and fixed and what it was, but I'd love to hear that today. Then my second part of my public comment today, I saw that Jeff King was in the room, and I spoke with Jeff King. Thank you, Jeff, for calling me back, and about my information being wrong in the emergency management, so in the alerts. And I asked him how I can get that corrected from Klickitat Avenue to Klickitat Street. And he told me that somebody, and please, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but he told me that somebody would have had to have made an account for me in the alert system online for me to have the wrong information in the alert system, and that he didn't know of a way that it could be corrected. So I'm coming here today again to ask if there is somebody out there that's putting people's names on online in an alert system that are incorrect. I'm asking how that can be resolved, and if you could maybe ask Jeff King or Jeff Hunter how that can be resolved. So I appreciate your time. And oh, and I had one more question, which I asked last week. And that was a simple question, I think, but I wanted to ask each individual commissioner, are you affiliated with any fire department, fire defense board, EMS board, or any of the rescue units? And if so, how are you affiliated? And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tracy. So back online, and I see Dallasport Murdoch Council.
Yes, my name's Anthony Rizzi. I'm the chairman of the Dallasport Murdoch City Community Council. My questions are today is, I see on the budget that we're going to have this afternoon that over $500,000 is looking to be allocated to fix a lot of the problems with the wastewater treatment plant in Dallasport. And I understand that KPUD, the ones that are responsible for that, has said that before they would take over that facility, that all the problems had to be fixed. Well, I put it to you that they have been under contract for 12, 20 years, whatever, that they've been the one maintaining it, and they have been doing a very bad job of it. And that's why it's in such bad disrepair that it needs $500,000 to fix it. So I want to bring that up because we needed to have a bid process put out so that we in Dallasport can maintain the O&M for a year, just to find out if, to make sure that we can do it better, and that way that we can take over the complete in the future. So we want to keep the wastewater
treatment plant. We have our own utility district. With our water district, we just want to add this to another one so that we can help take care of our own selves. And because KPUD has done such a lousy job with our waste treatment plant and needs all these repairs, we want to take care of it ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, back in the room. Just, oh, I guess we've got a race going from you guys. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Robert Brown from Dallasport. I was a member of the Information Gathering Committee for the wastewater treatment system. Just last year, the Dallasport wastewater ratepayers received a 25% rate increase. Now, BoCC is voting on an additional 5%. That's just fact. Late November or early December 2023, BoCC unanimously voted to open the O&M agreement for the Dallasport wastewater facility for bid. The BoCC instructed the Public Works Director to create a requirement for proposal document so the bidding process could proceed. It was expected to be completed by the end of first quarter 2024. It is now well into second quarter 2024. To my knowledge, this document currently does not exist, so the bidding process has not been established. Has the BoCC voted to delay or cancel the bidding process and I am just unaware? Or is the Public Works Director defying the BoCC? The current operator of the wastewater facility still does not possess the personnel numbers necessary to operate the facility to its requirement by the designers. Their operating philosophy is still reactive. No one is present at the facility most of the time during normal work hours. The facility should be operated in a proactive manner. One of their most experienced licensed operators has recently retired. They are responsible for more than a dozen facilities. And if my memory serves me correct, their crew consists of 5 or 6 people to cover over a dozen facilities. Has Public Works checked to see if the subcontractor and the facility are still in compliance, seeing that their operator has retired? It is the Public Works' responsibility to manage their subcontractors. It has been brought to my attention that there is a request for over $700,000 in the supplemental county budget being proposed to repair the collection system and wastewater facility due to the current operator's failure to do prescribed maintenance over the last 15 to 18 years. I believe that the current operation and maintenance agreement addresses the operator's responsibility to repair the system if they fail to operate and maintain the facility to the designer's requirements. And I got a little bit of time left. Also, during the FOIA request to the PUD, we received many, many years of budget material. And in that budget material, there was a current theme at the bottom of the columns of a surplus or reserve fund of $200,000 to $300,000. It varied, as time went on. The information gathering community has not been able to establish whether that reserve fund even exists, but it shows up in the FOIA information concerning the budget material. I'm sure if you guys wanted to, you could get a hold of that material from PUD. Thank you.
Thank you. Back online. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I would like to make comment on the wastewater plant in Dallasport and the issues. I'd just like to state that the PUD needs to turn in negligence issues into insurance per their contract. And we don't need another 5% hike. The rates keep going up and it's getting ridiculous. We should not be paying for their negligence. They have not done proper maintenance since they took it over 18 years ago. And I'd like to know, has there been a financial audit or a maintenance audit on the wastewater plant? Thank you.
Thank you. Back in the room. Mr. McNeil. No challengers this time.
Gonna hear a lot about us. This is our day.
Yep.
My name is David McNeil. I'm from Dallasport, and my narrative begins with on August 16th, 2022, at a scheduled Board of County Commissioners workshop held at the Dallasport Community Center. As a reminder, I'd like to point out, disappointedly, by the way, that at workshops, neither audio or video are recorded. Representing the BoCC were Jake Anderson, Dan Christopher, retired David Sauter, and retired Executive Secretary Lee Snell. From Public Works and present were Jeff Hunter and soon to be relocated Gordon Kelsey. From the Klickitat Public Utility District Number 1, General Manager Jim Smith and others were present, but only the General Manager spoke at the meeting as indicated in a Dallasport Community Deliberative Report. There was a respectable assembly of Dallasport wastewater treatment facility and collection systems, and we'll call that facilities from here on out. Sewer service area rate players present, including Dallasport Murdoch Community Council members, future DCDA community members, committee members, Dallasport Water District commissioners, and including the executive director of the Save Dallasport WA Community Action Group. Key points to this narrative are first, the fact that during Commissioner Anderson's dissertation at said meeting, he quoted figures from a document he brought to the workshop. Second, he also quoted a second figure dollar amount he claimed to have obtained from a recently conducted Public Works engineering valuation study. These figures were part of his explanation as to why the county was financially in a bind, and therefore transferring the county's ownership of the facility was necessary. Then he stated the BoCC's only option was to turn the facility over to the KPUD, who, being one of several individuals, disputed this perspective. I strongly opposed that BoCC intent. We are now at a point where in the narrative where the DCDA would like to thank Commissioner Christopher for his gracious act and cooperative effort, whereas I asked, is the BoCC willing to share Commissioner Anderson's document with our community? Promptly, Commissioner Christopher gathered the document from Commissioner Anderson and handed it to Bill Clark, seated near the front of the audience as requested by me. Please note that they're also seated in the front row of the audience in August 2022 was that year's election candidate for County Commissioner District Number 2, Lori's over. Subsequently, a group of people being a BoCC Commissioner, a Public Works Director, and a KPUD General Manager have been perpetuating a misleading insinuation and to willfully misrepresent the authorship of the Commissioner Anderson's document
Sorry,
as
Mr.
being
McNeil.
created.
Your timer went off.
Well,
You can share your testimony with us and we can finish reading it.
I can. I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you. All right, thank you. David, do you have another copy of your document?
What's that?
Do you have another copy for yourself of your document?
No,
Okay, all right, thank you.
I got it at home. I got it.
Okay, or we can get you a copy of it. Okay. Anyone else online? Seeing no one in the room. Okay, maybe we're coming to the end of comment period. I'll ask online and in the room one more time. Give you a couple seconds to check in and raise your hand. So I guess we'll close. Oh, that was quick. Good morning, Gabrielle.
Hi, I'll make it brief. Last week there was comment again, victimizing or blaming the victims in the jail. It is not about open mouths get fed. This is about the individuals who were poorly treated, who suffered in that jail because the people who had eyes on them did not respond to them. because the individual that came in with a long-term drug addiction was told by the arresting deputies that he would go through withdrawal and would require medical assistance. This is about the negligence of individuals who were in power, not doing what they needed to do to safeguard these victims. And to listen to the victims being blamed week after week is disgusting, and it will never stand. The victims are the victims. They are not toys. They are not props that people get to use to push around their ideas. This is dealing with the issues of the jail, should be addressing the failures of policy and procedures and the work that different departments do with one another concerning that jail and how you improve those systems. The other thing about these monitors, that you're throwing a tech idea at them of these blood pressure monitors. This company is not established. It's a fairly new company. You have issues of physics of getting through concrete and steel. You're asking for a county to, after the $25,000 from the insurance company for initially purchasing them, you were literally asking for $14,000 more a year on running the system. I don't understand why money isn't invested in the nurse that you've always wanted to have at the facility. You need to place a human face on this. And what are you going to do if 7 monitors are on prisoners, yet a prisoner without a monitor has something happen to them? You set yourself up for another lawsuit because you didn't have that gear for that individual. I think that you create more chaos when you are sputtering to have a solution as to just literally find the correct solutions. Thank you for your time. And again, stop blaming the victims and this horrific incidents at the jail. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. In the room. I thought you were coming up for public comment. I'm teasing. Anyone else online? If not, it looks like no one in the room. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak? No, I don't see. Okay, so we will close public testimony and move to commissioner comment. Mr. Christopher, I think it was your turn. Mr. Anderson, are you ready? Okay. Back to you. Well, let me see. Mr. Christopher is going to wait to go second, and Mr. Anderson's still taking notes. Thank you for the Dallasport Water District Day. I think this is your day today. Let me see where I'd like to start. It seems like you all had similar comments about the wastewater treatment plant. I know I do not believe, in my mind, looking back through the meeting minutes that we had last year and my recollection of the raising the rates, we were working on that with the PUD to bring Dallasport into the new era and align you with other communities. And I think at that point, they believed they would raise it over a period of time to bring you closer to what other communities already pay. And so the rate that you had this year was substantially lower than other communities still. And then we would be moving that up over the next period of time so that it wouldn't be just one big hit right away to bring you up to where everybody else is. And I think there was documents that showed that, in meeting minutes that showed that this is not an emergency increase, but it was something that has been planned and talked about. As far as the treatment plant, I was in the room that 2022 too. I was there and I watched the presentations and I heard what the commissioners had to say about what was happening with the treatment plant. We did pay off all the debt on that, and so it does have to transfer at some point. That would be the county's desire, not to be the owner of a wastewater treatment plant, but that'll be a process to move us through that. I think there's a little bit of feeling that the work that's going to happen at the treatment plant is devious and we're cleaning up something that's behind. But you have to understand, I think that was the working order of the PUD at all the treatment plants, and they have them on a schedule and they do those specific things at specific times. And so the way you have in mind, the way you would maintain it and keep it daily or weekly is probably different than what that corporation, how they run their schedule. And that's my understanding. And so I think the upcoming maintenance, we did talk about it. It's something that has to be done. I was told we had that funding to take care of that. And that's something we'd have to take care of before we ever think of passing it on to anyone. We can't pass something that needs maintenance on, or even think about creating a system that moves that until we have it in top shape where it needs to be. Let me see. I don't know if I have any more comments on the wastewater treatment plant. And I think, just to make it very clear again, the lower rates, everybody knows, was due to the landfill. And with the landfill cutting back and our dollars cutting back, we have less money to give out to the community. So that was the driving force behind where this whole conversation started with the Dallasport Water District, to make it less of a burden on the county, but move it into a new era. And Sherry, in regards to Greg, I will look into that. I haven't had time this week to look into your question about right-of-ways, but I will take some time and try to work through the documents and look at those easements and answer your questions. And then Sherry, in regards to the franchise agreement, the statement that we can deny any agreement, we can, but we can also put the county at great risk for litigation. So any choice we make, we have to be sure that we look at both sides of the issue and look at where we need to land so that we keep the entire county safe and the entire budget safe. We don't want to be paying out for challenges or something that we've made a bad choice on. Some of those things take time. None of us are attorneys. We have to get legal counsel. We have to work our way through that. So I think that's the process that's happening now with the franchise agreement. And Tracy, no, I'm no part of any fire department or fire board. So thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Morris, are you saying that the county should transfer the water right while we still do not have a response from the FAA? Based on years of working together on this project, and the county and the city are spending a lot of money on an attorney with the FAA. You would like us to move forward without that. I have a feeling that the legal counsel from the county and the city would probably not look favorably on that at this current time. If you do need access to that water, as we stated years ago, we could start with a lease agreement and doing a change of place of use and a change of the point of diversion for that water so that the district could get legal access to that water sooner rather than later while we continue to work through the legal manner. This has been on the table all of these years. It's something that could have been completed a long time ago, and it's something that will still, even if we quit claim deed the water to you, will still have to occur. And this takes time and it has to go through the Water Conservancy Board. The sooner we get started on that, the sooner it can get completed. And if we don't have to have the water transferred in ownership or in fee in order to do that. Dale, thank you for coming up. Thank you for bringing your concerns. I would say that when you're commenting on the 5% increase, that we have a public hearing for that coming up. Please stay around so that your comments can be taken for the public hearing. During public comment, we are not able to take, and usually during public comment, if there's a public hearing, we actually are not allowed to listen to something that's going to be in a hearing. But you're also statement of why isn't the facility operating as it should? I believe the facility has been operating as it should, because you guys can all still flush your toilets. It's been operating for the last 20 years as it should and as it's been designed. What happens is over the course of time, these projects need your annual maintenance, your weekly maintenance, but then you also need heavy maintenance. Some of that falls into the capital side. What we have not been doing is saving money for the capital needs of the future build outs, because the community has been paying rates lower than the average rates anywhere else. That money should have been, you all technically practically should have had higher rates for the last 20 years so that we could save money, so that we could do these heavy maintenance projects that are upcoming. The numbers, as we all know, in all construction continues to climb, and it's climbed much faster than inflation. And we're coming up on millions of dollars of refurbishment of this facility. The county taxpayers at large have been supplementing along with the landfill, the Dallsport wastewater system for the last 20 years, because that was an agreement we all agreed to do. Prior boards did. That facility was sized to meet the growing demands of a growing community. The community did not grow at the speed and pace that it was expected. And so, of course, those operations cost more to manage a larger system that has capacity. We're now coming up where it sounds like there is going to be a lot of growth in Dallsport, hopefully soon. We've all heard that there's going to be growth in Dallsport. About every 10 years, something comes up that there's going to be a massive project. When those large projects do hit, hopefully we will be able to raise the funds to fund a lot of those capital projects. But a lot of those funds haven't been able to be appropriated because Dallsport didn't grow with 500 units here or 100 units there. And so we didn't get those fees. Mr. Walton, thank you for your findings document. Thank you for providing something that we can actually put our hands on and read front to back. Do you have that in PDF form that you can email to staff so they don't? I understand. I was asking if there's an email so that they don't have to go and scan it, because otherwise they have to scan it and copy it and send it to us. So that we can all three have one.
One can read it at a time. Don't read anything that's given to you as it goes, Mr. Anderson. So don't ask for more than you get, okay?
Mr. Walton, I was just asking a question.
Want to keep doing this argument?
I'm sorry, I had your name down as Leo Walton. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
I wrote it though. So thank you very much for your comments.
All right. Well, we will scan it and get it sent to the commissioners. I was just trying to avoid work for staff. Sherry, you sat through all of the agreements on the franchise. You've also sat through the meetings where we are asking, do we own that property? That was a question that I asked of the Public Works Director, and the Public Works Director clearly stated that we have right of way through that area, and we also have easement through that area. You're talking about misinformation, and the Public Works Director also made the statement that a franchise agreement is to protect the county and the county's rights. He also stated that they can move forward and build it without a franchise agreement because it just needs a permit in order to build within the county right of way. The franchise agreement's purpose is actually to protect the county. This is what staff is explaining. So saying that it's misinformation when staff is trying to clearly explain what actually has to go through to actually building it. We cannot issue a franchise agreement over property that we do not have an easement on. We can't just issue a franchise agreement through anybody's property. That's not how it works. In order to issue the franchise agreement, staff has to ensure that we have an easement or we have right of way. Tracy, I'm glad that your issue is finally resolved. It sounds like I'm super happy. I would also, not to throw any water on this fire, but did you know that there's a 421 Klickitat Avenue in Goldendale as well? Yeah.
Had to do that.
I know, I had to. But don't worry, it has a different zip code. So everything hopefully is, I did though, you always talk about the Klickitat County IMAP program. When you open the Klickitat County IMAP program, it pulls in information from a lot of different different other outside agencies programs. Some of it, like the maps, we end up having to pay for, so we don't update it very often. But one thing I wanted to be very clear is that program itself, the very beginning of it, when you open it, is this map is for planning purposes only. It's designed to be out there to help the constituents. It's not designed for anybody to use to try to get to an address or anything else. It's a big cluster of information all put together so that we can try to do and understand zoning for the citizens. So don't take it as, because those lines aren't perfect on there. I can tell you that a lot of them are 50 feet off. It's for planning purposes. In your question on if I'm affiliated with any EMS board or fire board, sitting as a fire commissioner is one of two things that I promised I would never do and volunteer for, that and the school board. So no, I am not associated with any. With that being said, I've worked on a lot of CWPP plans and mitigation plans throughout the county over the last 20 years. So I have been involved in the documents. I'm just not involved in any of the management of anything. And I think the rest of it I'll leave for our public hearing. Thank you.
Christopher?
Thank you. First, I'd like to start by apologizing to everybody that asked about Dallasport wastewater rate increases. There is a public hearing later, so I cannot answer those questions. I cannot talk about that right now. That would be highly inappropriate and out of order. Technically, your comments should have been held. That was out of order. I have no I have no plans to avoid your comments. I just don't want to be in any kind of a conflict during the public hearing. On the rate increase itself. With that, to the end of the rate increase, WJ, I would really like to transfer that water right, which he's not here, but maybe I'll skip him and come back. Maybe he'll be back in the room. Dale asked about reserve fund of about $300,000. I think it's closer to 500,000. That is currently where some of the money in the supplemental is coming from. We got the 250 from landfill gas to pay for the clarifier. PUD wouldn't allow the other 250 to come out of landfill gas. So we're using part of the reserves of Dallasport wastewater to pay for the other half of the clarifier. If you want an exact number on what was in reserves and what will still be in reserves after this, I would say stick around for that public hearing later, because well, I don't know. We may ask, we may not. If not, get back to me. One thing I do want to clarify is, Leo, you read a statement that the three commissioners were present at this meeting. And they said that they wanted to turn it over to the PUD. I just want to clarify that that has never been my personal opinion. That is still not my personal opinion. I personally have no intentions of ever turning that plan over to the PUD, just to be crystal clear. Right away, address change. Mr. Rizzi, good comments. You also asked about the funding, the reserve funding, which hopefully I explained. There is still some there. I'll try to get a confirmation on how much. There's a question of whether there was ever a financial or a maintenance on it. I'm going to clarify that with the Public Works Director later. Mr. David McNeil, thank you for your comments, sir. And WJ's back, so I'll go back to the start. I'm not the chair. I can't tell you can or cannot speak, sir, but
I was just gonna ask you if you wanted to copy of that report.
I'll read that. You have my word. I'll read that report. I promise you, I will read that report. WJ, I started with you, but you weren't here, so I finished on and then I'm coming back. I personally have every intention to abide by the contract that you're stating. I personally believe this county needs to do that, has to do that, although I do believe there are individuals that would like to unwind that contract, that would like to maybe not value the water right at what it was when the contract was written in 2011, but maybe reevaluate the water right to what it's worth today and then say, well, see, it doesn't pay out, so it's not a fair trade, so we can't abide by the contract. I unfortunately can't get, I'm being careful how I say this. I cannot get legal advice as to why we need another consultant for the FAA litigator. They already consulted on the water right and valued the water right and everything once, but all of a sudden it has to be done again. And I cannot get an answer from legal as to why. So I personally did not give my support to get another consultant to look at that. I feel for you, but at this point in time, whether we do or don't do anything, it's going to be on legal and it's going to be on the city of Dallasport. While I would have every intention to second this motion, I don't believe this motion is going anywhere because I don't believe I have a second vote. If you can get someone to make the motion, I will second it. I don't know that that means anything because we're only half of the solution. You got to have Dallasport or City of the Dalles. But nevertheless, my vote will always be to abide by the contract. My vote will always be if somehow, if what I believe is true and there are people trying to unwind that contract, it will be my stance that if they do get it unwound, that Dallasport Water District is paid restitution for the full extent of the damages by this county, which is a whole nother expense that this county is going to be liable for down the road. So they have two choices. They can either abide by the contract or they're going to have to pay the water district a heck of a lot of money is the way I read that contract. And if that's the direction they want to go, number one, they won't have my vote for it. Number two, you will have my vote that you get paid restitution for breach of contract. And that's what I have. Oh, fire. Yes, I am part of Centerville Fire Department. I have not been actively active in the last year, but I was for many years before that. I believe my uniform's still hanging up there. I just am too busy to go to meetings all the time. Because part of my meeting schedule falls on the same Wednesday evening that they do their meeting. I still show up to fire. I just don't go to all the bi-weekly meetings. Yep, that clarifies that. I'm good to go. Thank you everyone for your comments. And if I missed you, please reach out to me personally.
May I ask a clarifying question? Mr. Christopher, are you an officer?
No.
Are you a volunteer?
Volunteer. Volunteer. One of 30.
Go ahead. Would we, so we'll close comments and would you like to do the payroll? Warrant and certificates? You have a couple minutes.
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for your public comment and not making any personal attacks. Madam Chair, we have before us the consent agenda with 8 items. My motion is to approve.
I would second the motion.
Mo-
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, or excuse me, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, we have before us the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $556,176.45 for the date ending May 20th, 2024.
I would second motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes for payroll. Thank you. So department update from Scott Edelman, Planning Department. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Scott Edelman, Planning Director. Before I get into the handout, I wanted to start with just two things. One of my favorite things is a question that I was asked the other day at a meeting. Which Cochran sister are you married to? It's been fun how many people recognize the roots that are here from my family. And I think what sticks out is with just the volume of people who went to school with my wife or her sisters, what it means about this place. It means a place that people want to stay or people will come back to. And it's really, more than any place I've been to, people come back or stay here. And that's really neat to see. And I know people have asked a lot about you, the commissioners, is what's your legacy. I think there's also community legacy. And I think nothing says more about a community's legacy than the kids wanting to come back. The other thing I wanted to mention, I'm involved in a email group called Planning 2. And that's an email that just populates my inbox. I probably got 12 while I've been sitting here. It just, it goes to every one of the planners, and it's the number of comments we get, and it's just constant. It's all the various public inquiries. It's the general box, and those get answered regularly, and it's incredibly fast how they get answered. I'm not the one answering most of those, but I get to observe and see how fast they get answered, how professionally. Often they're accompanied by building or public works comments or environmental health that you see in the chain. And I get to see the kind of customer service that this county provides. And it's really impressive. And we don't always get thank yous, but I want to read just an email that we did get after a long chain of emails that involved several people from multiple departments. And a person who's doing their due diligence, trying to buy a property that was in a critical area, wanting to know what they could do with these buildings that were within, one was 20 feet from a creek. And after getting several responses, very thorough, we got this email. Dear Megan, Denise, Lori, and all, because of the very helpful, friendly, and caring responses and communication I had with everyone at the county offices and courthouse, I went ahead and jumped in and entered into a contract to buy the property at, I won't say where. I think I'll save everyone the consternation of deliberating over permit requests pertaining to the two existing structures, and instead do a proper plan of a new structure that conforms to all setbacks. I just find it very impressive that somebody came in wanting to use buildings on a site, but was so impressed with the customer service they received that was, to me, it's a push over the top of, yes, this is where I want to be. And I just think that's one example that we see of the good customer service that we get. And we get comments, you get comments a lot from the public about things that they'd like to see happen. You've got some this morning. As staff, and I think I can speak for just about all staff, we see things going on that you see things that going on that the public doesn't. There's, I don't know if you want to use the analogy of the tip of the iceberg with all the big part underneath, or the duck with the looking so smooth on the water with the feet going crazy. I see that all the time in every department I work with, that staff is often working hard behind the scenes and the public doesn't always know. Moving on to my report, Board of Adjustments is meeting after going about 9 months without a hearing. They've had 3 in the last 5 months, including the next couple months. June 3rd, Smith RV Park and Husum, and then July 1st, the Solder Bowen Wine Testing Room on Old Highway 8 in Lyle. Those are coming up. Planning Commission last night, I can't talk about details, Wilson Monroe rezone, because you're of course the body that the recommendation will go to. Just another example of a hardworking commission, volunteers who are really doing their diligence to ask the right questions and delve in the information, as well as the public, including the applicant, bringing up right issues, asking the right questions. A very passionate community over there in Snowden, and appreciate their dedication to planning and being involved in their community. As you know, the SEPA appeal will be consolidated with the recommendation that will come to you eventually from the Planning Commission, which the deliberation on that has been postponed to June 7th. The hearing was closed. The record open only for rebuttal, written rebuttal from the applicant, and they'll presumably make a decision on the 17th. Also on the 17th, they are going to be continuing the critical area ordinance. And because of their understanding that we need to keep moving on it, they've agreed to a meeting the very next week on the 24th, just about the critical area ordinance. So they're continuing to make progress on that. Comprehensive plan, let's hope to have some news to you because May 15th was the date they're going to announce the grants from the Department of Commerce to community decarbonization. That's been postponed based on the website to late May, early June. So I'll keep you informed on that. Community meetings, I have to say, still in progress. I don't want to say I bit off more than I can chew, but there's just a lot going on right now. And it's been hard to get a handle on some things, especially with the backlog of applications that we are working on as we go through. I'll skip down to site visits. I had a very good conversation with Jim Wordward, Department of Natural Resources, the Clean Energy Program Manager. It's an interesting conversation, not like some of the other conversation with energy groups. He's the one who manages the properties for the purpose of profit for the state funds. And so a little bit different perspective on the various permitting issues and impacts on community. And if it went into the interesting policy that I found out that I didn't know that you probably do is they don't enter into pre-lease agreements until they actually have the bird in hand. And I find that an interesting way to go. And like not to criticize anybody, but I find that refreshing. And I also found his perspective refreshing, a good balance on impacts. I'll just say it that I think often proponents of energy are concerned about certain issues, farmland, cultural resources, items like that, environmental resources. I think it's often overlooked, the impact on neighbors and visual impact and on the investment that people make in their properties. And, I was very, very pleased to see someone at the state level understanding that perspective. Code enforcement, I just wanted to report without talking about any individual items. We've made some, I feel some good progress on a couple different issues, working with especially a couple different festivals that have been ongoing and annual complaints that we receive. We've got them in a track for compliance that we're working on. Hopefully of course, that still has to get there. And then also there was a self-reporting one, which is very interesting. First one I've had a destination, I won't say what, but who came in to us and said, we want to get this right. And we see that we've got some issues. And what I wanted to mention with this is you've got a county and county staff that works with people. And I've seen that with all departments as we deal with building, planning, environmental health, really working to see how we can solve the issues, get people in compliance, but also understand that the best thing is to work with them, not if we can avoid the path of fines or other enforcement. That's much more difficult on both sides. I went ahead and listed other current priorities. I'm not going to go through those. If you have any questions about any of them, you see there's a lot on similar topics and then other pending projects. So if you have any questions about any of the other items on my list, I'm glad to respond.
You're doing a great job. Just keep trucking along and don't get burned out.
Well, thank you. I think we are doing a good job as a team. And it's only because of the team.
Very good answer. And I should have said that.
You can.
Well, I take the you as inclusive because I'm only a small part of that.
No, and you can really see that you enjoy your work and enjoy the people, which is very important. And thank you so much for your leadership skills.
No,
You're doing a great job.
thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Miscellaneous reports, Board of Adjustment application.
I have not had time to find any applications to go with that. Not that I'm opposed to the application we have on file, other than the fact that I know nothing about the individual nor where he stands on any pertinent issues in the county. So it would once again be my recommendation that if he is not a personal friend of a commissioner that a commissioner cannot vouch for, that I would prefer that the candidates get interviewed before the board so that we can get a feel for them and make sure that they're actually have a mind of the majority of the public before we appoint them.
And I'm hoping to get an application in. I've talked to a few people on the west side, so I wouldn't mind pushing it off for a week or two.
Well, unfortunately, it's been on file for a while and we could review them. We could reach out. We've talked before about interviewing them, reaching out, making phone calls. And this man is very, very interested. I don't know him personally, but I know he's well qualified. And after our last meeting, when he was sitting and listening, hoping to be appointed and start functioning, he called in because he was very disappointed that basically he was left to the side again. Nobody had reached out to him for interviews or discussions or looked at his file. And he wanted to know if we could bring it up last week in our afternoon session to reconsider him because he wants to get moving and be a part of things. And I think we have a hearing coming up June 7th, which is pretty soon. They need that person. He is overly qualified to be on Board of Adjustment in my mind, looking at his applications. And I would prefer to move forward with who's on file, who's willing, and not make this a standard where people just don't want to apply for boards because this is what happens when they put in applications and they aren't considered. And I would like to suggest that we, if you haven't looked at his application, it's online, take a look at it and we entertain moving forward.
Do we know, when I look online, we have a list of applications under there that are back from 2021. Did we contact any of those 21, 22, any of those people that were interested at the time? Is it, so then we need to remove them if they're on there that, I, I hear what you're saying. I guess, and I'm also I'm hearing what Commissioner Christopher is saying, and I would ask that since there's a meeting. Early June, that we do have interviews, because I would like to get to know somebody who's applying. And so if we have any applications on file, we do interviews next Tuesday afternoon.
The applicant, he was gone for work. And so that's why he was kind of wanting to get.
To review the documentation, yeah. Mhm.
We can always send that to them as well.
So if I may. I understand the need for volunteers. I understand, hey, we have a live body, a warm body that's willing to fill a seat. Let's throw them in there. I think that's my opinion. If I was to do that, it would highly be not good. The Board of Adjustment is in charge of essentially granting special use permits like Cypress Creek renewables, like under canvas. I think we need to make sure individuals have the same frame of mind as the majority of their people in this county, and they don't have any special affiliations to things or whatever else. It's just, I mean, this is either a 4-year or a 6-year position. I think it's responsible government to make sure the person you're appointing fits the community and doesn't have a voice that's different than the community. That's just me. So you can disagree with interviews all you want. And sure, I've read the application. The application looks fine, but it doesn't go to someone's personal beliefs on growth, development, economic development. You don't know that from the application. Brain surgeon, sure, you're qualified for brain surgeon, but so.
How long has his application been on? Okay. Yes.
So just for clarity purposes, you guys want us to put them on the agenda to be interviewed from now on? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking that if none of the commissioners know the person and none of the commissioners can vouch for the person, then that's where I'm at. That's how I would like to see it. I mean, if I'm getting a recommendation from, if Commissioner Anderson reaches out and finds an applicant and he's going to sit here and vouch for that applicant, then if that applicant has future issues, I'm going to go back to who recommended them. The same as if I said, well, I'll vouch for Charlie Brown here. If Charlie Brown has future issues, the voters get to take it back to me because I vouched for him. But when none of us know somebody, for all you know, they're extremist, Holocaust. I don't know. You don't know anything. We don't know anything. They might be completely pro solar in a community that's against solar. We probably should know those questions before they appoint them to make decisions for things like pit trailhead and everything else, because we've already found out that once they make the decision on the Board of Adjustments, we don't have a say so. We don't get to go, well, sorry, Board of Adjustments. It's not like Planning Commission, which makes a recommendation to the board and we get it confirm or deny. Board of Adjustments make a recommendation. We don't have a choice. So Board of Adjustments says yes to a Cypress Creek renewable permit. It's through. I think we have to do due diligence to the voters to make sure the candidates sitting on that board represent the people in the community.
So I've worked with boards for eons. I don't even know how long ago the boards were created for watershed planning and fish recovery. And that was the instigation of a bunch of boards. And it was really hard to reach out and find dedicated people that want to donate their time and come in and educate them, pre-educate themselves with all the documents, then come into a night meeting after they've worked all day and serve this county. And we've always had a process where they submit applications. This year is the year that it changed and we started talking about wanting interviews. And so first of all, I'd like to apologize to the applicant. I don't consider you a warm body. I've looked at your application and I felt you were well qualified. We shouldn't ever consider somebody just thrown on a board as a warm body. They apply because they're dedicated and they have qualifications to share. Second, if we're going to want this interviews, we need to redefine our process. So when an application comes in, they understand a interview is required, and we have a time frame that we talk about and set up where we set these applications up. We get their interview right away, and we're not kicking this can down the road anymore because we can lose valuable applicants too, and we won't have people on these boards. We have to show them some respect. So go ahead.
Madam Chair, this is this is a little different because it's not a regular application that's coming up because someone's term was over. It was because somebody went from being on the board and moved to a different board. And so it's a midterm, mid-cycle. So we didn't go through the regular process of, putting it in the newspaper and everything else with all the other ones together. And I do believe when we wrote the policy back in 2021, there is an option for doing interviews that is written into the policy, and I'm trying to respect Commissioner Christopher's desire to do that.
Okay.
It is actually in the policy.
But I'd like to ask that it's not just in the policy, that we actually activate it and we put a time frame that if your application comes in, we, the board, activate and have so many days that we call them in for the interview, so we don't leave it just sitting in a file. Within 21 days, we will do an interview, or you hold on to the application?
You have to keep the application period open for a minimum of 21 days so that everybody has a chance to apply, I believe. And even if you only have one application, the board does not have to accept that application for boards. We built that in as well.
But what I'm looking for is a policy that says if we get an application, we accept the application, we're going to move forward with it. I'd like to know within how long do those people expect that they're going to get an interview?
Well, I would recommend the chair read the current policy and bring forth an item on the agenda to change the current policy if that's what she'd like to do.
Okay, to keep it organized, I will. Thank you.
I guess I brought forward an idea, Madam Chair, that we do an interview next Tuesday for anyone who has applied and who has the opportunity, if they're available next Tuesday afternoon. Are you amenable to that, my seatmates?
When would you like the deadline for application submittal to be considered for the interview process? Can they turn in an application Tuesday morning and still get in on Tuesday evening if they so wish? Or do you have a deadline for application?
I would say Monday afternoon.
Monday business, if they have an application by Monday, close of business, they can sit for an interview on Tuesday. I'm perfectly fine with that.
First round of interviews, and then we'll do interviews consistently after.
First
And we'll
round.
change that policy. Just meaning that, not first round on this one application, just mean going forward when we change the policy, we know
But
it's.
we don't know that we're gonna change the policy, so
Okay, well,
you want to, so bring it forward.
I don't want people languishing in a file.
In action item though.
Okay.
She'll be voting on, is that correct?
Sounds like it.
For the interview,
Yeah.
After the interview to put them on board.
potentially, yes. So make it sure on the agenda, there's the possibility for an action item.
Thank you. And you guys will reach out to him? Okay. Thank you. Okay, Wasack.
Excuse me. So last week, we had the Wasack retreat for the legislative steering for setting policy goal or priorities for the 2025 legislative session. This is the earliest that Wasack's ever got those priorities set in place, so that now the staff has marching orders for the next 6 months to start preparing, because with these priorities, we're expecting that if we want, we may end up drafting our own legislation to then go to legislators to try to have them run bills. So that's why we started early. There were 42 separate submittals. Actually, I think they were in their 50s, but a few of them just got thrown out. Klickitat County, I submitted the proposals that we discussed. The Wasack policy team analyzed the 42 submittals, 42 that they deemed as actual submittal worthy. And they kicked out the county coroner, the unfunded mandate requirements that I submitted. They kicked that one out from consideration, and property tax reform, changing the way property taxes are calculated. Wait, no, sorry. That one actually didn't. The clean energy property tax impacts, the legislation to address and remediate the impacts. That one they kicked out as well. And then they kicked out,
Did they kick that? Sorry, did they kick that one out
Into
because
it.
they?
I'm getting to it.
Okay.
So, the first thing we did, we had overviews, and then we voted to anyone who wanted to make, changes to the ones that staff kicked out to try to bring it back in. I advocated for the county coroner be getting brought back in as one of them for discussion, and that actually got pulled back in. And then I advocated for the clean energy property tax impacts to come back into the discussion so that I could get a little bit more leverage on the conversation, and we brought that one back in. So our proposals were moving forward, and it was different this year because the idea was to have 6 priorities, 2 from urban counties, 2 from rural counties, and then 2 all county issues. And so in the urban counties, the ones that went forward was new county revenue. So this is the legislation that's so hot, but was really important, and that's whether we go from a 1% to a 3% possibility, or any other county revenue options that would allow counties the ability to raise revenue, because a lot of the west side counties are completely tapped out on revenue. There's just nothing they can do. The second one that the urban counties brought forward was legislative strategy for indigent defense and the caseload standards. And this is trying to get revenue from the state regarding indigent defense and the caseload standards, as well as the unintended consequences of those caseload standards. We talk about how much it's going to cost on the the one side of the spectrum. What we don't talk is the prosecution side, because if prosecution has just as many, cases as they used to, but you have a third of the cases on the public defense side, prices are going to raise across the board. You're going to see it because they all work together. You could go from one side to the other. So there was a really hefty conversation that was really good on that. The rule, we ended up, there were only 2 that staff had pushed forward. One of them was local government options for funding affordable housing, and the other one was a county industrial land bank land bank for GMA Authority. When we were able to pull the other ones from rural that I submitted, the county coroner one actually passed. So, and that could be, just getting the state to put in 200,000 to all the counties to help fund the coroner position, which, the big counties are like, well, we already have it, we fund it, what do we care? And I'm like, well, if you can get 200 grand, just like it's a big deal for us, it actually got almost unanimous support, and it was the first one to pass. We had really good discussion on the clean energy property tax impacts. Which, yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt, but 10:15 is when our public hearing for Dallas wastewater.
Oh, well, we can come back to this.
Thank you, Elise.
Tell you the rest later.
Okay, thank you. Did we have an agenda for opening? You have it. Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. I knew you'd save me.
Yes.
You should have waved a red flag at me, Mr. Hunter.
Yeah.
So can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, you can't.
Okay. Thank you. No, I'm sorry, we missed your time frame. Wasn't your fault.
Your squishy thing here.
Thank you.
Something different from the two.
Yes, at the very bottom, you see the three. We probably should have just stapled them all together, but.
Thank you.
I'll give you the rest.
I need little packets.
You need 5, Jeff? There's 5 here. He gave you the 5s.
One says 10 and one says 10 capital split.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll get into these in a minute, what they are.
Yeah, because I've got two.
And then it'll be much clearer, trust me. Yeah, it would have been easier, but then we'd have this big monster paper.
Okay. Okay.
You only gave me one spreadsheet. There's no way I'm gonna have all this for the sheriff.
I should have just given you one like this.
Huh?
But, okay.
Okay, so I will give the public just a second to get their documents.
There's one, isn't it?
Mine are right here.
Hey.
Should have put- Okay, we didn't think through this one.
Okay, we're going to open the public hearing for the purpose that to continue taking public testimony with regard to the proposed Dallasport wastewater rate increase. And Mr. Hunter, would you like to give a brief overview?
Okay, we're required to do this as a sitting board and you guys do rating. We have to look at the treatment or the system every year. They didn't in the past, they just did an automatic 3%. See where that got us with the 25% increase last year. So every year we evaluate the system and we evaluate the cost and what it brings. And then at that time, we propose a rate, which then this board votes on. You have two choices. Because this is an elected board, you get the right to vote on what the rate is because you're elected. If they don't like what you vote on, they can always vote for somebody else. If you were not an elected board, then it would go to UTC and they set the rates. But in this instance, this is an elected board. So with that, we looked at 3 rates, and the reason there's 6 spreadsheets is a lot of what's driving the rates and what we've talked about is the capital outlay. And that total is on, I believe, page 3. Oh, page 2. Yes, it's on page 2 in 2025. And it's over $2 million. So what we looked at doing, and again, where we come up with that is that is not bad maintenance or anything else. It's worn out stuff that's past its life. It's projected life. To give an example, if your car had 300,000 miles on it, and the motor started going bad, does that mean you didn't maintain it? Or does that just mean it's at the end of life? That's where we are with a lot of the stuff, the equipment in Dallasport. Commissioner Anderson made the comment, and he's 100% correct on the fact that, usually those rates are set at the very beginning to apply, to build up a fund. And it was not chosen to do that back then. Instead, the taxpayers fronted all that capital up front, all the taxpayers of Klickitat County. So through the landfill, not through taxes, but through the landfill. I want to make sure that that's, so we're tasked now to make this system stand alone. So with a $2 million capital outlay coming up, what we did is we looked at, can we divide that and be more realistic? So therefore, that's why you have 6 spreadsheets. And then we looked at 3 different rates, a 3% increase, a 5% increase, and a 10% increase to see where we were. To be honest with you, they don't, and then 5 across the board just as a placeholder, because that's what most of the utilities are going to right now. If you check around, we've talked to PUD, we've talked to the cities, most of them are at 5%. Some of them are higher than that. There are very few that are lower than that. It's just because, again, like we've talked about, costs are going up quicker than anything else. So to get in, without getting into too big into so my suggestion is we did it with the 3 different ones. And if the board would like to evaluate the whole capital outlay in 2025. And what that means is you're looking at getting a loan in 2025 to pay for the capital. That's how you do utilities. Typically you get a loan. If you can get a grant, you get a grant. But the whole idea is the ratepayers pay for that system that they have. It's not pushed to somebody else. So
if it was a loan, what would you be thinking the term would be?
20 years. So we built it out to 20 years with a rough estimate payment of $200,000 a year. but we divided that in one of the other things and said, well, let's try it in 2 terms. So maybe we can do it in 2 terms. So we get one loan in 2025, and then the other loan is in 2028, which would pay the other half approximately. So that would kind of segregate out the payments and would be more what we'd like to see. We don't.
Save you interest for 3 years too.
It would save you interest, a portion of that interest, yes. You would end up carrying 2 loans, but that may be the more preferable way to do it to keep the rates down. That would be my suggestion. Luckily, we don't have to tackle that today. The main thing we have to tackle is the rates. So if you look at the top of each one of these rates, you'll see a little number up there, 220 or 2028 or 2027. That's when the fund balance shrinks, goes into the negative. And we have it up on the screen also. Well, I can't put them all on the screen at once.
So you have to pick the one and I can click on it.
Right, exactly. So let's just do, if we're gonna do that, let's talk about the 2000 or the 5% capital split. Because that's what we're proposing. Again, doesn't have to be, but if we put that up there, so it's saying that the fund will go negative in 2027 if we just do what we're doing at the 5% increase. Again, we just plugged in the 5% because next year we have to reevaluate too. Every year it'll have to be reevaluated. This takes into no account, you know,
One more question, 5%. What was CPI and CI for us last year? Wasn't it roughly 5%?
Yes. Yes, that's why we stick with that. We propose that. Again, there's not that, it's not the huge amount of difference between 3 and 5. It doesn't push that number out either way. I gotta make sure I'm getting this right. I have too many stupid things. Anyway, so it doesn't really push it out much. So, and essentially that brings the new wage to, or the new fee would be $64.22 a month. There were some questions about the, what is in fund balance. And that is at the very end of this spreadsheet, right in this gray section. That is the existing fund balance. When people say, where is it? Where is it going? And wondering why it's dropping, because we are using some of it for like the clarifier and those types of things. We had we don't have the bill in yet, the complete bill where we had the line go bad on us. So those kinds of things have to be replaced. Again, this is not an emergency hearing. This is a typical hearing that we have to have every year. We will schedule it again every year until something changes. And we would have this regardless who runs the system, as long as the county owns the system. I guess we can ask questions. I don't know if we want to go through everything. A lot of these, I'll let people digest what the costs are. Ideally, the rate takes effect June 1st, the new rate. Again, you could choose not to raise the rates at all. That's another option. We just looked at 3, 5, and 10. You could do something in between. You could do whatever you want. And at that point, I think we're done with our part of it.
That's great. So we'd like to open it for public comment and just public testimony, excuse me. And just be respectful of the individual that has the floor as recognized by the chair. And everyone who wishes to provide testimony will be heard. Thank you and have an opportunity. So would someone like to come forward? Anyone in the room ready? Mr. Peppel.
Fans, this is the first, Mark Peppel, Dallasport Water District. Just now getting this is not really fair to us, but I don't see in here where the $1.2 million they had on last year's budget for replacing the line from the cherry growers to a new line. That would be added on to the $2.2 million, so that'd be 3 point whatever. And the cherry growers, I don't know if you guys know it or not, but they actually are getting fined by the PUD on PUD letterhead $1,000 a day if they discharge over X amount, which is ridiculous. We supply them out of a 2-inch meter, all the water they need to wash all the cherries, but yet the PUD fines them if they go over the amount that their system is designed for. That's, I mean, that's another reason that the airport is holding up growth in their park, their business park. And you can't, how can you sell property that doesn't have the utilities that they say it has? So I find it hard to believe that all this stuff is happening right now. And as far as the percentage goes, obviously rates are gonna go up. And I haven't had time to look all these numbers over. And there's a lot of things missing from this, from the past budgets that we've seen. But we know that we've had 2 leaks on Sunridge Avenue this year in the last couple months because of sewage backing up. And now they ask you for money to pay for them not doing their job to inspect those lines. We don't know if they've ever inspected them. Matter of fact, we've heard that they haven't. And all they have to do is open the manholes and look in and see if there's flow in there. I mean, we're getting way overcharged, and it's been the past history that of just signing off on the contracts or the budget of the amount of people that the PUD on the O&M, they don't abide by that, and they don't do what it says in the O&M or the state laws. That's so you guys need to make the decision of if you're going to make them or the public works director do their jobs and check on it. I mean, there's no balance, no checks and balance. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Thank you. We'll move to online. Is there someone who'd like to make comment online? Seeing none. Move back into just 1 second. Anne, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
I do have an opinion on the status of the Dallasport sewer, the maintenance and also the rates. There are a lot of ratepayers here who do have major concerns about the operation and maintenance program or lack of it. on the Dallasport sewer system. There is a definite lack of documentation. I do have a maintenance background. It's something that I used to teach, as a matter of fact. I was on the tour over there. I was not especially impressed with the answers that we were getting and the things that we saw concerning how the operation and maintenance is performed and documented. I'm not seeing a whole lot in the way of actual documentation about what is and is not being done over there. That's been a year ago, and I'm not hearing about any changes in the way things are being done. I have concerns that the operation and maintenance is not being performed according to the contract that they originally signed. And I think those things need to be addressed. Concerning the fact that equipment is catching the end of its life, that's true. But from an operation and maintenance standpoint, proper maintenance absolutely can extend the life of a lot of that equipment. Lack of proper maintenance will absolutely contribute to needed repairs. We have concerns of if that maintenance has not been done, then the ratepayers are being asked to pay for something that was contributed to, at the very least, by a lack of maintenance. The original contract, which I've read, does mention the sewer plant being turned over to the PUD once the bond is paid off. Looking at the timing of all this, it seems very convenient that the bond has just been paid off. The county has gone on record saying you guys don't want to own a sewer system, which I understand. KPUD wants it. And now the ratepayers are being asked to bring the system back up to a pristine condition. Let's get it all in really good shape before they take it over. Timing kind of seems like me wanting to buy a used car from you, getting you to pay for all the repairs and then sell it to me at the original price. I do have some questions about whether this hearing is a formality. I'd like to know more about what happens if there is no rate increase. What function or service is going to be lost? And if that's not something that's documented and can be publicized, ideally before the rate hearing, so we would have a chance to look at it, then maybe this rate hearing is premature. I don't think it was advertised very well, as a matter of fact. Y'all have a nice day.
Thank you, Ann. Back in the room.
I believe it's industry standard that the collection system be telescoped and then pigged out at 3 to 5 year intervals. And I don't believe that's happened. If you telescope the line, it gives you a condition of the line, whether it's plugged up or not. That information will allow you to order a cleaning of the line when it is most easy to do. I am curious if there's any records of that kind of maintenance being done, because then we've had this issue of spills and overflows on Sunbridge Avenue. I do understand, about end of service, life on equipment, but there is prescribed maintenance that needs to be done, case being the auger. The brushes have not been changed in the auger. Generally, industry standard would be possibly 1 to 2 years, and the brushes need to be changed out. The auger's job is to get the debris out of the intake flow. If you get debris in the system, things like the WASP pump and the ROS pumps can be plugged up, which would require their repair or replacement. There's been a bit of research done on the cost of these pumps, and these pumps can be had for about half of what is showing in this sheet that I was handed today. So there's definitely cost savings that could happen. As far as a rate increase, at this point, we're paying $61 a month. A 10% increase would be $6.10. I know for some people that could be a lot, but for others of us, it could pad a reserve, to help the system down the road. Also, if the system becomes indebted while it's owned by the county, then that in turn ensures that the county has to maintain ownership. Is that correct? So
That is my
anyway, that's
understanding.
kind of things I've got to say. I will, with my little bit of time going back, the binging system has a person on site at the plant 40 hours a week. The designers of the Dallasport plant recommended 60 hours a week. It is very well known throughout the community that at any time you can drive over to that plant and the gates are locked and nobody's there during what would be considered normal work hours. And this happens repeatedly. The staffing at the current operator just is not sufficient to properly operate the plant to the designer specifications. Thank you.
Back online. Just raise your hand if you wish to comment. Dallasport Murdoch Council.
Yes, this is Anthony Rizzi once again. I'm not going to talk today as the chairman of the council. Today, I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm a 20-year Air Force retiree. During my time in the Air Force, I spent several years as a preventive maintenance supervisor. And what you're going to hear today, you've already heard, you're going to probably hear some more, is that the problem with the Dallasport facility is it was not maintained. One of the things you learn when you have expensive equipment, and mine was all electronics, but you have to do preventive maintenance on a schedule. And by doing that, you don't have catastrophic breakages and having to replace equipment because you've done your preventive maintenance. And what we have pointed out and will continue to point out is KPUD was not doing their maintenance. They were not taking care of the plant. They were not replacing the brushes. They were not doing a lot of things. Why? Because they are only reactionary. When there's an alarm or an outage, then they go out there and do something. But if you look at the records and all the things that we looked in the FOIAs, they were not doing their job, and they should not be paid large sums of money to do nothing. And that's what we have found out. Now we're asking that give us the chance to do the O&M for at least a year, 2 years. And if you find we can't handle it or do it cheaper than KPUD, then sure, you can do what you want with it. But we think that we can do a better job, and eventually we could take over that plant ourselves. Because at someday we hope to become an incorporated city. And when we do that, we want to have our utilities under us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back in the room. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeanette Johnston, a newbie to the Dallasport of the last 4 years. My biggest concern, like the others, are the PD trying to increase us 5%, and then just raising taxes. Where's this supposed to come from these folks? Most of us are very much a retired community on fixed incomes. We, the people, voted each of you guys in true faith. Sorry, a little emotional here. I guess I would really like to see something done there. These folks, some of these folks have been there for years working on trying to get something done. We don't even have a park. Anyway, emotions in check. I'm a little under the weather, so bear with me. Anyway, needless to say, folks, please consider, I might have had one more thing to say here. I guess my time's still okay. The wastewater business was handled very well with conversations from the last two folks. I think they handled that just fine, but that's also something that is a huge concern for all of us. Anyway, thank you for your time today, each of you, and we hope to see some changes.
Okay. Anyone else online? We've got a few minutes left if someone else would like to speak. Nobody? Anyone else in the room? Oh. Sherry, we'll come back to you, Sherry.
It's Leo Walton again from 102 Vineyard Road in Dellsport. And the thing that concerns me the most is the sewage spills that we have had. And from what I understand, the DEA, the Department of Ecology, Health Department, they expect the wastewater treatment center to self-report any spills. Okay. And if it's, I don't know, 25 or 50 gallons, whatever it is. Well, we had next to the Sunridge lift station, a spill 3 years ago that literally put in the lawn, in the house below it, there was sewage on the lawn, okay? If they would have reported that, because I could not find anywhere that they have ever reported any spills whatsoever. And if they did report it, would the health department or the planning commission turn around and allow a house to be built within 20 feet of the pump station? That's setting the wastewater treatment plan up for a big lawsuit right there. As soon as it floods, and it floods that brand new house right next door. I've seen that before. I do not like it. And it's a major cost. But it's also the health of our citizens and non-reporting. If we don't have a report, how do I know what happened on the street next to us? I don't, unless I see it. So Dellsport, whenever we see the trucks out or something like that, we're taking pictures and we're documenting it. And if we have to, if you guys won't make the public works director oversee all the requirements that you have for an RCW and the contract, then maybe we should turn around and just take all this information up to the newspapers and let the ratepayers and the taxpayers who have supported us. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Rachel?
Yes, this is Rachel Schwab from Dellsport, and I am not nearly as eloquent a speaker as Anne or Anthony, and I would just like to voice my support for what the issues that they brought up.
Thank you. Did Sherry get back on? Okay, and Sherry, finally, thank you.
Yeah, I do like to comment in public hearings, even though I don't live in Dellsport, I'm in Hewsum. When I hear other people that are affected negatively, I like to help support them. That's what we should do. No matter if it affects us directly, we should care about our fellow man. And listening to the comments, it sounds like the taxpayers, the waste treatment water ratepayers are the ones who have to foot the bill in order for a system to be, brought up to speed when it was neglected. And then it just sounds like that the PUD will also just take it over and own it, I'm guessing, because nobody's really, unless you live there, is really in the know of all this. And so it reminds me of how the taxpayers will pay for roads like Courtney Road. And in my opinion, that was a complete favor for the building of people who want to build up there. But yet the taxpayers paid, we don't even know how many millions of dollars. It's, I think, around 8 or whatever. And it's like for personal favors. And so now it's concerning why a town, or, you know, that hopefully one day they will become the incorporated city they want to be. But how do the ratepayers buy and pay a system that they would like to keep, and all of a sudden the government just comes in, ups their rates, and says we're taking it? So it seems to me, again, not knowing the whole story, that the taxpayers, the ratepayers, just fund the big corporation we call government. And it's not fair to the people. Stop, you know, plundering us. I mean, everything. And I'll tell you this, no matter what is said today, this is my belief, and prove me wrong, that no matter what is said, no matter how it negatively affects the people who will have to pay, no matter how it negatively affects anybody, and all these comments that you'll hear today, this is just a formality. You will approve that high rate increase, and then you'll say, oh, it pains me to have to do this, whatever little show you do. But you're hearing from the people who live there. You should do what the people want you to do that live there. End of story. Don't just do what you want to do to benefit your bank account, or to give that away to another agency or whatever, another corporation. Like, come on, guys. Do what's right for the people for once.
Thank you, Sherry. Anyone in the room? Mr. Clark.
Yes. My name's Bill Clark. I live in Dallasport, 200 3rd Avenue. I'm also involved with the community council. This is basically a call for corrective action. I'm going to read this statement. These actions that are required to be acted upon by the county will not be a truncated governmental process, but it will offer the county immediate political catharsis and clarity with regards to leadership in a moment of crisis, that a failed policy and procedure effort coupled with the actions that do not speak well for previous county administrations were permitted to evolve. Whereas from the beginning, with the first known engineering study and perpetuated in the planning stages of the Dallasport wastewater treatment facility, the Board of County Commissioners at the time simply ignored proven engineering standard operating procedures provided by a qualified, certified professional engineering rate study, which was paid for by the county taxpayers. This was published in the Executive Summary of Conclusions as described in the Kennedy Jinks Consultant Final Rate Study in August 2002. Therefore, preserved over 20 plus years as the bonds were paid off, and it continues to this day. Henceforth, in 2022, when a Dallasport Murdoch Community Council Temporary Committee called the Dallasport Community Deliberative Assembly, better known as DCDA, came into existence, this handful of dedicated sewer service area ratepayers and Dallasport Water Treatment Facility, along with highly qualified and certified county residents, began researching the depletion and the physical depravity which was allowed to descend upon this once pristine state-of-the-art facility. The DCD has documented this fact with the PowerPoint presentation produced for the community of Dallasport and in a 46-page documentation report, including 2 maps, a table of contents, 3-part bibliography listing all the freedom of information requests for the public information, a list of reference documentation, and a final approximate tally of nearly 12,000 pages. Bottom line is a change of operation and management contract and leadership is paramount for the health, safety, and welfare of the Dallasport Peninsula residents. The future growth within its immediate boundaries as declared by the federal administration, a special management area. This was referred to as the Dallasport Gorge Urban Exempt Area specified by the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area Act, November 1986, signed by President Reagan as a new federal protection. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Anyone else online today? Lynn? Did you wish to speak, Lynn? She on mute? Oh. Okay. In the room, anyone else?
Hello, Commissioners. This is Tracy, and I'm representing a friend of mine that has property in Dallasport. He owns lot 6, lot 7, lot 8 on Elm Street in Dallasport, and he also owns lot 5 on Poplar Drive and lot 10 on Oak Street. And I had offered to help him do what I thought would be an easy either lot line adjustment or boundary adjustment to be able to split up his lots 5, 6, 7, 5, and 10, because they are 5, 6, and 7 are together. 5 and 10 are together, 6, 7, and 8 are together. And they're 100 by 100 lots. Except for lot 5, it's a 50 by 100, but there's also 50 by 100 is on either side of him. So I went to Denise at the planning department to do a legal lot determination. And the county found that he could only have lots 8, 7, and 8 on the Elm Street with only a 40-foot section of lot 6 separated. So that would be his 2 lots, which lot 6 at 40 by 100 is not a buildable lot. When he tried to split up the lots 10 and 5 from Oak Street and Poplar Street, he found one is 100 by 100, the other is 50 by 100, and it hosts the pump for the Dallasport water system. He was told that he was unable to split either one of those lots up. I'm here today because if people would, I think it was Mr. Christopher that said that Dallasport hasn't grown in the rate that they thought it would. If the county would allow this person to split up the lots 6, 7, and 8 into 3 individual lots, he would build on those lots. He would put in it would give you one more user on your system here, one more water user, and more tax lots in the county. On the one on Oak Street, he would split up that 100 by 100 and that 50 by 100 into 2 homes, making another connection again for this system and tax lot for the county to be able to get that property tax from. So I'm here today saying that this is more than just a rate increase thing. It's the county looking at this zoning or the land lot size and really thinking about it. I mean, it's a 50 by 100 lot, big enough for a house. I think so. There's other ones there. In fact, there's even smaller ones there. So I know my time is about up, but I support the Dallasport Water District, and I hope that they can get their wastewater treatment plant. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? None. No more. Anybody in the room?
I have a correction on those numbers. The PUD allows 30 gallons per minute discharge. And we give them 300 gallons a minute in water supply. And that is.
Can't hear him.
That's what they should be able to discharge.
Yeah, and you have to come up to the microphone. They can't. Oh, and I'm sorry, Mark. I've been reminded we don't allow people to speak twice, but you can, yeah.
It's a correction.
So Lynn, would we like to try you again? Did you wish to speak, Lynn? You're unmuted, but we don't see your hand up. Hadlick? No. Maybe a technical error. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no one else with comment, no one in the room or no one on Zoom? Anybody else that hasn't gotten to speak, last chance. So the board's opportunity for clarifications?
Staff?
Thank you.
Have we completed or where are we at in the process for the wastewater O&M bid document?
We have not completed it. We've been overrun by all kinds of other things. Massive public records requests, which take a numerous amount of time. We are down staff members. I have more than two people out due to medical issues. And so, no, we have not had an opportunity. Also, please keep in mind, since PUD moved forward on the clarifier project, they will have a contract with a contractor. So whatever we would do would have to come after that. I mean, we could go through the process, but you could not remove them until that contract was over.
Do you have a timeline for when you believe the bid document?
I do not. I have not had a chance to follow up with PUD on that, sir.
All right, I will set that question aside for further discussion on the board when we have time for it. There was a question earlier about a maintenance study. Has there been one? Yes or no? And if there has been, is it a public document?
Yes, a maintenance study, there was a study done. Yes, there was. We've submitted it. It's been requested many a times through when we did the sewer plan, which we never moved forward with because we couldn't determine essentially what we were going to do, and that needs to be put in because it's sent to DOE.
Did
They
they
also look at how the system is functioning. Also, I have a report from DOE where DOE said the system is running very well.
Well, I guess my question is, I think the question asked of us earlier is not, is the system functioning well, but has there been anybody brought in to look at how the PUD is operating the system to say, yes, they're operating it correctly up to standard. They're cleaning things correctly. They're pigging lines correctly. That kind of a thing is the question, I think.
When DOE goes through, they sent 2 inspectors down. They spent 2 days there. They go through it with their people and everything else. We got a clean bill of health from DOE. The system is running, is maintained properly. The only, again, I'm cautious to say this, the only black mark on that is the equipment there needs to be a plan to replace the outdated equipment.
Okay, those are the only clarifying questions of staff I have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff, on the labor, it shows $222,840 from 2024 to 2029. Is that realistic? That it's going to cost the same when everybody gets price increases?
Again, we just plugged it in and just kept moving it because I don't know what their system, what there is. So we kept that as what it is today. We know what it is today because we get it in their budget. But again, so yes, no, it's probably not realistic.
Okay.
But PUD has no play in this. This is all us. Pam and I spent hours, more Pam than me, creating this spreadsheet.
Thank you. On here, it shows Klickitat County expenses, 48,000 in 2023, 62,000 this year. And that looks like that inflates at probably about a 3% increase. Is that what you did?
Yes, I believe that's what we did.
Okay.
We can do ours because we
So
know what our
for
costs are.
for our costs, we added about 3%, but we didn't add an inflator for staffing. So if we assume that staffing is going to go up, we could look at the end number and assume that there's 3% compounded
Yes.
annually that's going to make a change. Okay, my next question, 2023 contractors was 6,940, 2024 is 61,500. Why is it 61,500 for 2024?
Good question. Good question. We had heard talk, the lines have been inspected and they have been picked out. This is the last part of the pigging this year. Where there's one more run to do, and that's the Sunridge run. Everything else has been done. So that 61,000 is in there. If we would have wanted more sheets, we go out to 3033 and our 2033. And in 32, it's scheduled to do another pigging, but at that time it's in the excess of $125,000 is what we're estimating.
So we're expecting no pigging between now and then and no other costs.
Right, because we just finished just last year. And now, or we'll finish this year, sorry. We did the other lines last year and the year before to kind of break it up, to break the cost up.
Thank you. And is a 10-year the average or the expected for piggings? We heard 5 from somebody this.
It can be 5 to 10, depending if you have any problems. It is 5 if you're running at max. Please keep in mind, our system runs at about 40%. Because yes, it's a big system. And it doesn't have the capacity, we need a lot more development to add capacity to the system. System has plenty of capacity.
Next question, power costs were 39,230 in 2023. We put 37,000 flat across the board. Was that staff thinking that costs are going to go down in electricity, or what are we thinking there?
That could be an oversight on our part. I'll be honest on those costs. Again, the 3 costs here on this last page, it does, again, I don't want to get into discussion who runs it, but I'll just put this into this system. It doesn't matter who runs it, these costs are fixed. I mean, not at this price, but you're not going to change the electricity cost.
I'm just trying for budgeting purposes to have
Yes,
an
I get
accurate
that.
budget for what we need to raise.
We can look at nailing that down a little bit more. I apologize. We did this late at night and
No problem.
we
I
missed some of this stuff.
trying to ask the questions.
No.
Can I ask a quick clarifying? So technically all you're looking for out of this public hearing is there a rate increase? And if so, what percent? We can decide if there's a split or no split later.
Right, that's all.
Just the percent. We're not talking about O&M contracts. We're not talking about capital split or not. That's decisions for a future date. This is only, is there a rate increase? If so, at what percent?
And that's the
Correct?
only thing we're under the gun on. And again, a 0 rate, could that be done? Yes.
What is your under the gun? When do you need to know by?
Well, we set the rates, and this is by our own ordinance with it, June 1st. That's when the new rates go into it.
My question is, these documents were not necessarily provided to everybody with due time to look at them and think. So if this board wanted to not make a ruling today and hold it over till next week, so people had time to add a written comment, once they have time to look at the documents, would that throw off your time schedule at all? And
No,
then
it
we can
wouldn't.
make a decision next week.
It wouldn't, as long as the board is okay, we would date the letter. It may not get to the people before June 1st, just telling them that was the rate increase. Again, we picked 5% because that's what most of the rates are going up in the area. The board could choose to do 0. But again,
I think the board could probably even give you where their head is at today.
right.
So that you can pre-plan, and then by all means, we might change our main based off what.
And
input comes in
again,
from the public.
it's the board's decision.
Okay, that's all I have. Just run it behind the other one.
It seems like when I look at this staffing administration and then I look at the maintenance, where do you put for unexpected issues, things that come up that need to be budgeted in there, say a pump goes out or there's, like pigging that needs to happen. There's a sewage leak that happens. Where is that built into the budget? And are you building that in, or is that just coming straight out of?
Comes out of fund balance.
Comes out of fund balance. So we are not budgeting for that. Do we have an average over the last few years of what that is?
We would have to look, it's been kept down quite a bit because ultimately you would have heard about it. So yes, it has, we've kept it down quite a bit. The leak they had that I showed you, gave you a picture of, was something that was done when the plant was built. But typically with plants or with it's pretty, you try to keep a fund balance. So if something happens, you have that. Typically you have extra pumps and that kind of thing in case something goes down. And then the next, we would go and look to purchase a new pump to replace it.
But what I'm getting at though is in many budgets that I work on, we have a line item for contingencies.
Right.
And we have not designed that in here. But if I were to ask for our ballpark number for contingencies, is $20,000 about average for what a year could cost for things that happen? What should that be? So when we're designing our operating, this is what it actually costs to run it, not pulling things out of fund balance.
Right. Let me check on that so I get, I'll have a better number for you if that's okay.
Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
And they asked my questions already. It was the maintenance records and also the 61.5 I was interested in. So if the board has nothing else, is there anyone else who came into the room that would like to comment that didn't get a chance?
Madam Chair, if I may, before.
Okay.
What I would ask that this is public testimony. So when you start public testimony, please state whether you're for or against and which of the options you are for or against so that we can actually hear. Talking about everything else that has to do with the wastewater system is not pertinent to the discussion here. We need to be talking about the rates. And if you are willing to have the rate increase, which one you support, please. Otherwise, it makes it more difficult for us to make a decision in the end.
Thank you. So anyone that has not had an opportunity to comment on the rates? And any more discussion by the board?
Oh, go ahead. He has his hand up.
Either way. So when we had the meeting down in Dallasport, where we adjusted the rates, I think it was well understood by everybody that the automatic 3% wasn't holding up. I think it was pretty clear by everybody we were going to need to adjust it every year based on CPI to keep everything going. As we are just in the hearing considering rates, I personally believe operation and maintenance and all that affects rate. So I understand the citizen input on O&M contracts and whatnot, because I believe that has a place in the rate. I'm leaning at the 5%. I'm not sure. There's pros and cons of the capital split. I'll worry about that one later, but I'm leaning towards the 5%, but I would like to hold this over until next week and allow people more time.
Mr. Anderson?
Go ahead if you're looking at a couple numbers. If you have.
And right now I'm leaning with Mr. Christopher, that I believe the documentation, we might want to give people a little more time and make a final decision next week.
The 200,000 that you've built in for the loan repayment, and that's for a grand total of how much in loan? Is that 2.2?
It'd be a little over that.
A little over 2.2 for 20-year at what interest rate?
We just calculated it. I can't remember what we
I
did.
would remind the board that if we do that, it's a different question. That's that later question, and we also have another public hearing for 4 minutes ago.
I understand, but I'm trying to understand so that
Right.
the community can understand, because what we have yet to get is any rate, anybody saying what they think the rate
Right,
change should
exactly.
be. And I'm in favor of holding it over, but I'm also trying to make sure that everybody knows that this is what we need to hear from you. We need to hear by Friday at 5 o'clock. And we need to take these things into consideration, because when I look at the numbers and it's clearly showing that we're going to be going in the hole, and that's not including changes in power costs, that's not including changes in labor rates, that's not including contingencies, which need to go into operations. I can lean towards the 5%, but I also can, by my numbers, it's not realistic and logical looking forward, that's going to be the actual cost.
And that's why at the time, Commissioner, when we started doing that, I think we used like 5%, something like that for interest rates. So we're using today. Now, a lot of this is a lot of speculation, but when we started plugging the numbers in and we show that it goes, by 2027, we already have a problem. I mean,
That's what I'm
ultimately,
afraid of, is that with the
Yes.
high interest rates and taking a loan out today,
right,
you're gonna have your base charge, but then you're gonna have another one over here that's gonna be almost as potentially as much as your base charge if interest rates remain high when we do this.
exactly. So the idea is hopefully you can extend out that, but you're taking a risk
Mhm.
because the longer you extend it out, replacing those worn out parts, the better chance you have of something coming up, and now we have to come up with $500,000 to fix it.
Madam Chair, if you're ready.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion
We need to
to,
close the public hearing first.
So the public hearing is now closed. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to not close the public hearing, as I am making a motion so that we can keep the public hearing open to written comments until Friday at 5 p.m. so that the board can have deliberations and discussion next Tuesday at the time of staff's deciding. And I would also ask that staff update this
We will
as
do
we
that,
can.
yes.
So to aid in the deliberation next Tuesday.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right?
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out and driving up.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve pay estimate number 2 for the Fairground Sale Barn Project in the amount of $312,529.53.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I figured we canceled Public Works too, so that's why I went ahead and did the pay estimate. Let's move on. Yeah, we're behind.
We're canceled, and so we'll move to a supplemental budget hearing with fiscal manager Jen Neal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you have the sequence in front of you?
I do not.
Okay.
I do. Mr. Christopher. So we'll open a public hearing for the purpose of supplemental budget hearing. is what I have on my sheet. Jen, is that enough? Is that correct?
Yes.
And staff will present an overview. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this would be our first supplemental of the 2024 fiscal year. The county's stance on supplemental budget requests reflect a commitment to prudent financial management. Recognizing that the annual budget is established well in advance of its execution, the Board of County Commissioners acknowledges the potential need for amendments due to unforeseen circumstances or funding adjustments. Officials and directors are tasked with managing available resources efficiently, prioritizing expenditures, and exploring avenues for savings before seeking budget adjustments. Historically, supplemental budget requests has been considered under specific circumstances, including occurrences or conditions not foreseen during initial budget preparation, necessitating financial adjustments, urgent need requiring prompt action, unanticipated funds becoming available from the federal, state, or local sources, reductions in available resources prompting the need for appropriation adjustments. In this current cycle, there are a total of 14 supplemental budget requests. Among these, 8 are deemed budget neutral, indicating that sufficient revenue is available from sources such as grants or saved fund balances amounting to $6,402,382. Additionally, 3 requests involve technical accounting adjustments, while the remaining 3 necessitate intervention from the Board of County Commissioners to authorize budget adjustments totaling $236,228. In the event that the board approves all supplemental budget requests, a strategic plan has been placed to allocate funds from the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund to cover the $236,000 required for budget intervention. These funds were unanticipated dollars received related to COVID, thereby ensuring minimal impact to the county's financial stability. This approach reflects a commitment to responsible fiscal management and prioritizes the efficient allocation of resources to meet the needs of the community.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jen, I was reading.
That's fine.
Let's see. Where am I? So are we at board clarification, public statements, or open the
Okay.
public hearing for the purpose of public comment? Is it public testimony, great. So is there anyone in the room that would like to come forward and testify? Or anyone online? It's a quiet day.
The supplemental budget?
I see no one.
If no one has had a chance to review,
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question of the manager?
Go to the microphone.
Yes.
yes.
You have to come to the mic.
My name's Clay Munson. I just got a quick question. The 3 supplementals that we talked about at 226,228, which departments are asking for the supplemental?
That would be the sheriff totaling 130,200, emergency management 70,484, and the commissioners 35,544.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
That's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
And for additional clarification, this has been posted online for 3 weeks and in the board packet. for
Documents are in the
4.
board packet posted, yeah.
And I see no one online and no one else in the room. And does the board have any questions, clarifying questions of the public statements?
Yes. Thank you, Jen. So when I'm reading your overview of the sheriff through the 3-year-old invoices, and it says in 2021, the jail spent $52,222 out of their $73,000 medical budget. Was that from the previous budget amount, or is that including part of these $130,000 that you're looking to move over there? Are you given an overview of the actual spent at that time, or is this, so that was the actual, so at that time, they'd paid these bills amounting to this much. But we have bills from 21, 22, and 23 that we're going to be paying in 2024's budget with a budget intervention, which didn't get paid when they were,
Correct.
due. Do you think that, and that, so looking forward, I guess what I'm assuming is that line item for medical budget needed to be much higher because we didn't we ended up spending the money, but we didn't pay a bunch of bills as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so I'm just making sure that we have this because we're gonna be going into budget season and that budget needs to be higher. And so what you've got here does not cover the actual expenses for the medical that occurred at the time.
What was budgeted for would not
Have covered it,
covered,
yes, for any of those years.
yes.
Okay, thank you. My next question, emergency management, the 70,484 is a budget intervention, but do we actually expect that to be a budget intervention, or do we expect that to be budget neutral, considering that we got the FEMA declaration and will likely be reimbursed for that?
It's potential that it could be, as far as I am aware, FEMA reimbursement is still not 100% guaranteed at this point. My experience so far with FEMA is sometimes it doesn't come through at the end of the day.
But we're hoping that that's actually going to be a
Absolutely.
budget.
It is a
neutral.
possibility that it will be a budget neutral, and hopefully it results in that will be reimbursed.
And then under the commissioners, is that whole $35,000 for indigent defense or public
Public
defense?
defense,
All of
yeah,
it.
for the new contracts. The budget was built before the contracts were finalized.
Okay. And that should cover the whole year, or that should cover just Q1?
Elisa? The supplemental request that you submitted for public defense, would that cover the whole year of the contract? Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Christopher.
I have one clarification that kind of comes up with the last public hearing. Wastewater treatment center budget.
Yes.
Have we reached out to the PUD and I guess for lack of a better term, use the term demanded that they provide us their budget for next year before we do our budget?
Well, we have an agreement that they will provide it to us by, in October 15th. Sorry, I couldn't
So
remember
we
the
should
exact
have
date.
their budget by the time we finalize our budget.
Best case scenario, yes, we should.
Good enough. Because that would eliminate the need for potentially one more supplemental.
Yeah, and that one's just an adjustment. We build the budget knowing that they're gonna come in at a later time and change a few things. So in the last couple of years where we were trying to get through the budget, move it up a little earlier to make sure that we're adhering to those statutory deadlines. Public Works, myself, and I know I'm pretty sure I've talked to the board about this, just build it with a best generalized guess, and then we just modify it when we finally get their budget in.
So, go ahead.
Next question. So for the commissioners, we're expecting that this is going to handle the rest of the year. Are we thinking that for the sheriff's department, we might see another supplemental before the end of the year
I'm not sure.
for medical? Because this is covering just medical, right? And the retirement.
I'm not sure. Our system, our accounting software, does not operate as an AP system. It's utilized as a check writing system, so I'm unable to see invoices that are pending, not paid at this point in time. So I cannot answer that intelligently.
I guess like, we're trying to fix it for the rest of the year under the commissioners. If we're fixing, in essence, we're fixing a line item in the sheriff's budget, right? Which is something we don't usually do, I think.
Typically don't do supplementals like that, but I would hope that that would be all of it.
But I guess where I'm going with that though is if we know we overspent the previous 3 years. And then we're making a budget supplemental today, we're doing budget supplemental to actuals, or are we actually building in expectation that they might go over again, like they have the last 3 years, and we're building that buffer in there so they don't have to come back for another.
I believe that would be a fair assumption, but I would prefer not to speak on assumptions at this point in time. If you look at if you're forecasting off of their burn rate, it would indicate that yes, there will be an issue by end of October, November.
For the medical, for this category, or?
As a whole.
Oh, the budget as a whole, okay. But we don't know if this is actually taken into consideration, the expectation of between now and the end of the year. Okay. So this is an actual then.
I would say, historically, the numbers, that have been provided to me of what's actually billed from Klickitat Valley Health on an annual basis, that, that medical line was significantly under budget.
Okay.
Or budgeted way lower than historical annual build. So, but again, I'm not sure because I don't know who has been sent, what's going on a real-time basis.
But if we intervene now with this, and it is the second one due to the overage at the end of last year, this would be the second one helping catch up that we intervene on. Is there wiggle room in the budgets that they can self-adjust to help head off what might come in the fall?
Well, the expectation is that directors and elected officials, if they're seeing and their spending or their operations is going to take them over budget, it has always been the board's expectation that they reprioritize, they reevaluate their plan for the year, and they look at how they are functioning and what they're spending on before asking for a supplemental.
Mr. Christopher, any more comments?
I don't have any more.
I think we could close the public hearing.
Nope.
Nope, go ahead and ask if there's further public comment.
Good.
Okay,
Testimony.
I just assumed there was none. Public
We actually
testimony,
already
we
had it.
do, we have one, I wasn't looking up.
My name is Tracy. I'm from Lyle. And I just had one question, and I apologize, I don't have the legislation that went through, but I remember Jeff King saying, I believe it was 61, 63 or 36 or something. There were 2 sixes in it. And it was about the public declaration of emergency and having to do a public let the public know of what the emergency is. And he was saying that it would increase staffing, it would cause the emergency management a lot of money. I know it was passed, it goes into effect on June 1st. And I just wondered if those monies were included in this hearing. So.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Tracy. No more further public comment from anybody who has not got to testify? Okay, we'll close the public hearing to further public testimony. Is that good?
Go ahead, however you want to do it.
And discussion, any more discussion by the board? No?
I guess all I will say is I would hope that all of our directors and electeds analyze their budget, keep track of their budget, and make sure they come in under budget at the end of the year, barring emergencies and hopefully if there are emergencies, they let us know what that emergency is when it happens and not at the end of the year.
Thank you.
And I would say for these budget interventions, the first, like this is the first one. Usually it's taking care of things in the past, like where things may have happened. For example, this ice storm in January that caused the $70,000 in emergency management. You're catching up to the issues that have happened that you didn't know about. For the sheriff, we're paying bills from previous years. For the commissioners, it was an agreement that we didn't have finished and finalized, so all those make sense. This is a $7 million, was it 7? I don't want to be misquoted. Almost $8 million total request. With that, only 236,000 of that is a budget intervention. So we will potentially see more budget interventions later on in the year, but at the first one, people are still expected to operate within your budgets, and that this is just a regular doing of county government. Doesn't mean people are doing things wrong, in essence.
If I can add to that as well. Yeah, the first one, on top of everything that you had just said, the first one is a lot of times tends to be those things that we didn't know when we built the budget. We start building the budget in June of the prior year. So things come up. Public Works Road Fund is a perfect example. $5.3 million. They received a grant to get some work done on some roads. Okay, that money can only go to those projects in the road fund. So it was unknown at that point in time when they built the budget. Now it was awarded. We make those adjustments through the supplemental process. And that is what, per RCW, that is a true supplemental. When you receive revenue that you were not expecting, that those adjustments are being made.
Okay. Would you like to do a motion or?
This doesn't need to be passed today, does it?
The supplemental?
Right. We can pass it next week and put it on the consent agenda, correct?
I suppose you could do that. Yeah.
You have more things you need to do.
We just got no public testimony.
We almost
Sorry,
never
we got
do.
one.
We almost never do for supplementals. I can't even remember.
We usually don't. And for
I think
clarification
Sherry
too,
posted on or did one once, but
I also, offered the written comment, to the BoCC email. I made sure that email was in the, legal posting in the newspaper. There was none received. I did a news flash on the website. So yeah, I mean, typically, since I've been in this position, we really don't get public comment on supplementals.
I would prefer to make a motion, get this off our plate, and move on to other things.
Okay,
Motion's there.
feel free.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass the first supplemental budget of the year. You need the dollar amount, I think. Is there a dollar amount here?
Is
Uh,
7 million, you want?
I can write it. Yeah, Mark, you have it there.
800 and something.
Pass the first supplemental budget request of $7,879,316. I do want to make mention for anybody that's just heard that number, you might want to look up the number and go back into our discussion, because all but about 200,000 of it is new money coming to the county, not more money we're spending out of your tax dollars.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I would like to add a little bit. I hope that that's the last of unforeseen items that come through that are needing a supplemental to catch up in the sheriff's budget. And I hope we move forward in a way that they readjust their numbers and they don't have to come forward with another supplemental that cures the past, rather than how we use supplementals. Because I would be inclined to be a hard no on that.
Well, I guess I have to speak for that. If you're a hard no, then I don't know what we do, have audit findings, whatever. But I find it unfortunate that we continue to hound on the sheriff's past medical bills when anybody in this community is well aware of billing issues at KVH. So just because it's for an inmate from 2 years ago doesn't necessarily, the bill got hammered out and it became our bill and not the city of Goldendale's bill. So, well, you guys have been being political here for 20 minutes, so I'm just trying to say that there's many
And I'll just,
people responsible for late billing.
I'm not going to throw the neighbors under the bus, but I am going to say it's understandable and trackable and good accounting to keep yourself in a safe zone within our budgets. And that's what I like to see going forward. So with that, motion in a second, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And Jen, do you have something else for us?
I do, unfinished business. The board had directed staff in a motion on March 29th to start negotiating contracts and do the research and build a report in regards to corrections or jail options. So I do have that report done and available to you. And we are scheduled for workshop on Thursday to go into details. So we'll give you
This Thursday?
30th.
Okay.
I say,
Your
hopefully I
work-
got a little time to read that, yeah.
Yeah, your workshop. So to give to you today so that you have plenty of time to really go over it.
And just to be clear to the public, Elise will be posting, or you'll be posting that online. Okay, I'll let you go.
Thank you.
There will be a printed copy in the commissioner's office. And there will be a digital copy posted on the webpage. And
On your webpage, on the financial.
I believe under
Or
the
the-
BoCC.
Okay, great.
Yeah. This really isn't budget related, so in
Okay.
regards as a whole, so under the BoCC, I think is a better place for that. So, yeah,
Thank you.
welcome.
Did we ever get any responses back from the sheriff's office on the questions?
No, we did not. And there is a Q&A section within the report where I had put together the questions that staff was able to ask or answer from Commissioner Christopher, Commissioner Anderson, the sheriff's office when they had public comment and handed out a packet. I put those as in there that we were able to research and answer. There were some questions or statements from you, Commissioner Christopher, that staff, it was more of a statement to your seatmates or question or related to your seatmates that I didn't feel was my place to provide a response. So I didn't include those in this part of it, but you all have access to that and have had access to those since April 12th, I believe. In that task tracker that we
I
presented.
did see in the documents that I was provided, you answered some of them. This is more of a statement,
Mhm.
not a question.
And then there was one that, where I would block it so that staff wouldn't go try and, answer it, so they knew they could
There
move
was,
on
yeah,
from
there
that.
was quite a
Yeah,
few of those.
yes.
And you were, Madam Chair, I think we're gonna discuss the workshop on Thursday is a chance for board discussion, staff discussion, not audience participation. And that folks could submit their questions to the BoCC.
Yes,
Not
in
to-
writing.
In writing.
Yeah, they'll have a chance.
We'll
to
do the best
review
we
and
can to
submit
try and
questions.
address those when we
Correct.
can.
Great, that'll give the public a chance to address their questions.
I would like to thank staff for all of your hard work and dedication to this. I know you've been working nights and weekends trying to get all this done. I cannot say enough about how hard our departments and staff work on a regular basis, but this is above and beyond. Thank you so much for your time to all of those who worked on this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it hasn't been an easy subject. It's hard on everybody in a lot of different ways, emotionally, mentally. It's been a tough task, so I appreciate everything you've done. Okay.
Just for the public hearing, I know on the 30th, planning has a number of workshop topics. Are we gonna, is this topic gonna be in the morning or in the afternoon, just, or does it wait and see?
I would put it as the last item of the day because we don't know if it'll be a 5-hour discussion or not.
Okay, I just, thank
Would
you.
appreciate that. Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you very, very much. Okay. Okay, do we read that one and go ahead and do it for him?
Yes, if we can. It's
We'll
under,
find
it's
it.
in one of these. Thank you. Because I was looking.
While you're looking for that, I do have one thing under unfinished business that I would like to bring up. It is just a board request of staff. Our Zoom meetings, we have the countdown clock on there, which was a recommendation to put that on there. I would like to ask staff if there was a way to put an actual clock on there as well. So we know what time this, because like when you watch a video, you're 3 hours and 27 minutes into it. It'd be nice to know at what time of day that is. So when you're going, yes, so if it's on here, it can be on the recording. So it would be like your countdown clock, but it would just be a little clock in the corner that shows you what time it is.
So you want
That
to
way-
know the time of the day, not the time of the recording, because that's gonna get really confusing, right? Because when you post it, it's whenever you do it, and then you go online, it's like 4 hours into it. or
Yeah, but
whatever.
as you scan forward, you're gonna see it's 1 o'clock. Well, now you know it correlates with what's on the agenda at 1 o'clock. And it's easier for people to find
There
than
might,
have to go forward and
We could
just
put a clock
search scan.
there might be a,
So they, if there's a,
Little mini clock.
yeah, I can't imagine it's not an option, but it just makes it interesting. So if somebody wants to see, well, I want to see the public works update, they can just scan
so you
forward
want
until the
it
clock is
pinned
10 o'clock.
on there and recorded.
Somewhere in the corner. It doesn't have to be big, just somewhere where it's
I got no
from
issue with
Zoom.
that.
I think it'd just be easier for people to go back and look at stuff, especially if they have a specific item they wanted to go see out the agenda.
Mhm. It is hard. to
So
go through
if
'em
that
some-
passes, if we can look and see that, thank you. I just didn't want to
Yeah, if
direct
you can
staff
find
without
something.
board approval.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Madam Chair, we have before us a matter of establishing an outdoor burn restrictions within the unincorporated areas of Klickitat County, Zone 2. My motion is to approve that effective Monday, June 3rd, 2024.
I will second the motion and hope I don't have anything to burn.
Hurry up and get her done. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
It's been way too windy to get her done.
All those in favor?
I
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Yeah, I went 1 year, 3 years couldn't burn because by the time it was dry enough, it was too windy and too dangerous. So my Christmas tree pile got big that year.
Okay. So if that's all we have, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
No.
No, you've got something?
Might want to recess for Skamania.
Yeah. we need
Oh,
to
okay,
recess.
sure, we're going.
And was it printed in our agenda, the physical location that we're meeting at? I figured it was, okay, because I don't have it
It's in
somewhere
that
that's on the calendar
Hegwald
too.
Center.
So I can.
So we will be adjourning for the
Ah,
county commissioner.
We're not adjourning.
We're recessing.
Recessing, thank you. Haven't
We're
done this one.
recessing for lunch. We will be back in a different
Recessing for
location.
lunch, but we'll be back in a different location. We're meeting with the Skamania County Commissioners today at 2:30 at the Hegewald Center.
At
Using-
240 Northwest Vancouver Avenue, the first floor. It's actually at the courthouse, not at the Hegwald Center. So
Thank you.
it was on the first floor. So it's in their chambers, it looks like. And if you go online, you can get the Zoom login information off the internet.
Yeah, just to be crystal clear to everybody listening, we will not be using our Zoom this afternoon. We will not be in this chambers. We will be in Skamania County using their Zoom. So if you want to hear it, you have to log into their Zoom.
Before
With that,
we-
I will
Yep.
second if I haven't.
I don't think, did you make a motion or you just said we were gonna do it?
You made the motion. I
I
second.
didn't make a motion. She just said we were gonna do it.
Oh. okay.
So I'll take that back and go ahead and do a motion.
Before we make a motion, is there anything that we'd like to discuss, between us before going down there and discussing it with them?
Not me. We picked our subjects. and-
Okay, I didn't know if we wanted to be on the same page on anything before we went down, but I'm fine.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to recess the regular board meeting, noting that we will be meeting with the Skamania County Commissioners at 2:30 PM at the Skamania County Courthouse, 240 Northwest Vancouver Avenue, on the first floor. It will not be Zoomed via our regular Zoom. It will be using Skamania County Zoom, which you can find the link on the agenda page.
I will second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye. Thank you very much. So we will meet you guys there. huh?